Hello there. I'm Darryl. I'm the editor for Hollywood North News, um, a UK-based website that exclusively follows the Canadian film and TV
Mhm.
entertainment scene, however strange that may be.
That's cool.
Um,
Very cool.
so, really happy to talk to you. I have relatively recently watched The Bearded Girl, just for our viewers, because we'll put this up on YouTube, maybe TikTok afterwards. I am very happy to be here with director Jody Wilson and lead Anwen O'Driscoll. And I believe, Jody, this is your feature debut. Is
It
that right?
sure is. Yep, that's
It
correct.
is. Okay, so how does it feel now that it's here, it's out there, people can see it? How
Here,
does that feel?
it's here, it's great. It's still sort of like a little bit of a slow release, which is kind of cool. It kind of is kind of extending the period. We're just going into theaters here in Canada, which we just had our theatrical release last week in Vancouver, and now tonight in Toronto. But it feels great. I'm super happy with it. One of the things that, as a director, as an artist, I think that a nice test for me is I've watched the film several times now, probably more than I would like to admit, because I like sit in through all of the screenings. I watch it with everyone who wants to watch it with me, and I still enjoy watching it. And so that's a means something because I know that as artists we can be super hard on our own work and often we get reach a point with something where we're like, okay, I can't even watch it anymore. I'm done. Please don't even mention that word again. But I still like it and I'm still having a lot of fun showing it and talking about it. So yeah, that's a pretty lucky first experience, I think, because for me it was just an extremely lucky situation that my first feature was ended up being so easy, I guess.
Okay, thank you for that. So again, another question for Jody. We will get to Anwin, don't worry.
No worries.
So Jody, obviously you've witnessed with two other co-writers, and I was just wondering, when did the core of the story form for you? I know, obviously,
hmm
but that it's partly based on your own upbringing,
hmm
but very unique stories. Just wonder if you could expand a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I would say like the Bearded Girl has like its core story elements, almost like The Little Mermaid or some of these older fairy tales. Like the fairy tale aspect of her journey, her with a beard, shaving it off, running away, coming home, it was always in the story. It was always like since my friends, it was actually my friends who wrote the original, Blake Berry and Tiago Gadelia. And but when I received it from them, it's very hard to pinpoint like when it had its core because it was a story that was shaping for so long because I developed it for many years. I think it's much more challenging to adapt a story in some ways than to start from scratch. Um, this one was a little bit of a hybrid because it was like a page one rewrite, they call it, where you like start fresh and just add elements from the original story in. But I think, finding its core was, I knew when it had happened, like maybe when it was, and I look at that question as more like when it was felt like it was ready to finally be like realized in film. Because when you shoot something, you better have the story how you want it because there's not really a lot of changing it after that. So I would say, into like I would say right before we actually shot was where I did the final changes that I wanted to do and yeah, made it what it is now. And I think also the characters coming on board when the actors came on board actually also brought new life and new perspective to the story. So yeah, I think it was like right until the day we said, that's a wrap. It was finding its own life.
Okay, thank you. So, um, while watching, I'm obviously aware that there's very little detail in terms of where we are. It's to the city. They
Mhm.
never really expand more about where they are. And I think, was that part of making this world a little bit more fantasy, a little bit more lighthearted in
Yeah.
ways, so so that we as a viewer can easily see the differences um,
Yeah.
between our own world and there.
That's exactly right. I think it was like because I wanted to tell such a grounded version of a story like this. There's different elements that we leaned into that would bring us into more of a fantasy feeling, like you said, nondescript time and place. You were like, you weren't sure where you were. This place definitely had quirks to it that didn't exist, right? So it helped lean into it being more of a storybook, fairy tale like feeling because we don't make any references to anywhere that anyone would know. And it's the same with like also what era we're in is also a little bit nondescript. We had a few rules on set in our art department and costumes and props of that like nothing that was brought into the film or could was filmed could be past the 90s. So everything had to be before that. They could be from the 1910s for that matter, but they couldn't be over like 92. I think cars, costumes, all the costumes were vintage. The only thing that was allowed to be of the now and super contemporary was the some of the dialogue. The dialogue was not of a specific time. So that again, I think like you said, kind of all blended together added to the light fantasy elements of this of the final film.
Okay, so um, as I said, we have a family with an incredible lineage that they trace themselves back. Is there an existing family that is based on? And also, there are these amazing ceremonies that they engage in for their sort of rites of passage and passing on the mantle of, I guess, the matriarch. And I was wondering where those ceremonies came from, where that research came from.
Yeah, so the lore of the bearded women, it was really interesting because it was again another one of the explorations that were totally free for me to be able to dive into as like writing something that's a little bit fantasy. Although I did find there was a saint that was unsainted by one of the popes, like in the 90s, I think, or the 80s. And her name was Unencumbered Liberata. That's the name that they bring up in the ceremony. And she had a few different names. She had one name in Germany. I think that was her German saint name. And then she had like a German and a Latin name. Anyways, she was a bearded girl. Actually, she was not a bearded girl. She was a normal girl who her dad wanted her to get married, and she prayed that she wouldn't get married. And this is like a story from like not maybe not the Bible, but biblical things and biblical times. And she prayed, and then she woke up with a beard and that she didn't have to marry this man. That's one of the stories of Unencumbered. But then she was crucified the same way, and you know, was a saint of, justice and um, matriarchy. Like so, a lot of the things that were brought up during that ceremony scene and referenced were things from this actual sainthood story, and then just it was for me it made it wove in this sort of royalty to the family, right? They're like this royal family of saints, really. And I thought that that was super interesting to bring in there, and it added a little bit more of a seriousness to it, and a little bit more of like oh, you're not just someone who can just shave a beard and like act like this is like a real thing where you have to keep this out of respect and honor, and so yeah, that's where that came from, and I think it was a really it just helped, ground the film and also unground the film and bring it into like a different space uh, for the story.
Okay. And when I get you involved, what was there something initially that connected with you when you were exploring Cleo? Something about her character, something about her journey, maybe.
Yes, absolutely. So it's interesting because I grew up homeschooled on a horse farm with my siblings. So we were, we went and did community theater to get social interaction, but it was still quite like our own bubble. And my mom, when we were kids, the media that we consumed or the films that we consumed were all quite magical and colorful. A lot of animated things. Like we had The Last Unicorn and Miyazaki and The Dark Crystal and just tons of Peter Pan stories, and so tons of magic surrounding us, while also being homeschooled and kind of like, me and my siblings we were like isolated and together, and that's how we grew up in that little bubble. So of course, growing up and you get to teenagehood and your late teenagehood and you want to move to the city, which I did. um, I really could relate to kind of the undertone in Cleo's journey of um, trying to seek outside validation, like trying to break out of your own, what you feel is like a prison and your own kind of mold and the expectations on you, and wanting to go and explore, but then coming to the discovery of you can't make people love you. And the one of the most important things is surrounding yourself with people who will uplift you for your uniqueness and your individuality. So I could absolutely relate to that because I feel like I've had quite a few of those experiences. Um, yeah, so I think it's just like this beautiful kind of message that's under the film of just like you really like outside validation, like thinking like the grass is greener on the other side, trying to make people love you, changing yourself for other people is just so damaging. And to come back home and to the place where almost as if you're a garden, just till the soil and plant flowers and plants that help you grow and won't eat you kind of thing. So yeah.
Thank you. Okay, we'll switch to Jody. So, Jody, could you just let us know what you saw in Anwen that made you go, there we go. This is Cleo. We're ready.
Yeah, Anwen was one of the last tapes that I received. I kind of, we shot during the strike, so a lot of people were available, so I had a lot of tapes to look through. And she was one of the last. I had seen her in her other film, You Can Live Forever.
Mhm.
Um, and I loved it, and she brought such a grounded performance to that. And then when I saw her tape, I was just so moved by it because I was so, how do I say this in a way that's not like I was so moved because I was also so unmoved because she was so grounded. And that was such a nice break from a lot of the other tapes that I was seeing because it is a dramatic role, but if it's not at the same time. She's so grounded, she's so down to earth. It's very important that the performance was like that, and Onwin is like that, and her tape was like that, and it was immediately like she just told me that yeah, this is the character, this is Cleo, and there's a little bit of Onwin that sort of reminds me of myself in a way. And I think I was casting someone, at first I was looking for someone who was a little bit outside of myself, but I was writing this character that had a lot of things, a lot of my own voice in it. And so Onwin sort of uh, reflected that back at me. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. I'm connecting to this thing that I feel like I intended for it to come through, and she really brought it through. And then, just meeting her was like it was definitely just kind of sealed it, and like get a phone conversation, and yeah, she was just the only person that really could have played this role. So I'm glad that we met.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
Okay, so we get to see our sisters just being clear a couple of different points in their life. And so my question to you, Anwin, is do you think of yourself as more for Josephine or Cleo? And does that change between the two sorts of ages we see during the film?
You mean
Which one do you
who?
think? Yeah, it just quote this sort of personality wise, which if you maybe see yourself as more with Josephine, more with Cleo, maybe it changed in that time from being a child to a young adult.
Yeah, it's so funny because my sister in real life, her name's Anwen O'Driscoll. She's also an actress, and she is so much like Josephine. And we have that kind of relationship and that back and forth and that humor and wittiness. And she especially is just incredibly witty and fast and sharp. So I I feel like I related more to Cleo because I already had that sister dynamic that was very, very similar to the story already with my own sister. Um, so yeah, I think I'm more in line with Cleo and and her personality and her kind of spunk and color and yeah, with the way that we grew up. But it's just interesting because I kind of have that Cleo Josephine relationship dynamic in real life with my own sister. So yeah.
Okay, I was gonna press in on that because I do see that I believe the two of you had your gaming thing.
Yes, yes,
Is that coming back? I see that you've taken a
yes.
break.
Yeah,
I
we
don't know,
we took
maybe
we
you had
took
some
a
sort of a falling out after a fighting game or something.
no, yeah, yeah, no, no, no. We took a break because we there's some jobs that kind of cropped up. It was kind of like audition season, and that's what we said. And I recently finished filming, shooting something, and it's been quite busy for her. So we just had to take that break for our, for the film industry. But we do plan on coming back because Resident Evil 8 is out, and we gotta play it.
Well, that sounds great. I think everyone's looking forward to that. Just for Anwin again. Um, Obviously, I have seen a couple of your other projects. So that's what I was so that's open with. How was it like on Bird the Truth, and then in the second season getting to work with someone who you've worked with for quite a while in the previous season, Star Slade. How was that?
Yes, so that was my first kind of bigger job ever. I had done a web series before that and episode in a kids show and so Star is also our sister. Like she grew up with us and um we both got cast on that. The funny thing is Star and I were in the web series together before we shot Burden of Truth together. So we got cast in both of these shows playing kind of like best friends. I mean, we get to best friends in Burden of Truth at first. I don't think we like each other very much, but that was such an incredible experience because I just got to live with my sister for 4 months out of the year, every year, go travel with her and shoot a show with her. Amazing set. Kristen Crook and Peter Mooney are incredible leads and just lovely, lovely people and took care of us and took us under their wing. And yeah, it was an amazing way to kind of start, have my introduction to kind of bigger sets and bigger projects.
Okay. Right, so we're just wrapping up. So we have one more question. That question is, if you could tell us a little bit about working on season one of Bet, because I can remember watching it, and I can remember seeing where she pops in and out of the first. I going, she looks familiar.
Yeah.
Somewhere I've seen that. Oh, okay. I gave up. It was IMDb. Tell me, yes. So just tell us about it because I was aware of the anime, which is the thing that made me go, "This is a crazy idea. I've got to try it on Netflix." And obviously, for fans who may not be aware, you are renewed for season two. So just talk a little bit about your experience there.
I loved shooting Bet season one because it's so campy and kind of over the top because we are an anime live action and not directly copying the manga or the anime, but more of like alternate universe inspired by. So we go in our own direction with the stories and the characters, but keep some of the elements. It's so campy and fun and kind of one of my favorite movies is Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and Simon Barry is such an incredible showrunner, and he listed that as one of his inspirations for how he wants to edit and how he wants like the pop-ups and the visual effects to happen. And I was so excited about that. And I think it really became something quite fun and beautiful when I watched over it. I know that a lot of people were apprehensive at first because people were like, I don't want another live action of this anime. But once the show dropped and people watched it, a lot of people changed their minds and loved it. And, we got quite a good fan base. Pre-production, we're starting to shoot season two this summer, so that's very exciting. Which I'm allowed to say that now. I'm excited to start on season two. But yeah, Riri, so I love playing Riri, and I think it's also very funny that that was the next project that I did after the Bearded Girl. So I was wondering what kind of thing was going on with for Bearded Girl. I had to wear a beard, and it was a lot about identity, kind of her identity crisis, and then going into season one of Bet, Riri also has this mask. So it's just these two projects having this kind of like thing here. So I thought that was super interesting, and I feel like I brought some elements of how I kind of prepared and looked at the Bearded Girl to Riri in season one because they both have like this identity kind of thing going on. Anyway, yeah, great set. Miku Martinu is so lovely. She's such a great lead, and Simon Barry is an incredible, incredible showrunner. I'm excited for season two.
Okay. Again, I'd like to thank both director Jody Wilson and Anwen O'Driscoll for giving some time to Hollywood North News today. Thank you very
Thanks for
much.
having us. Nice to
Thank
meet
I'm a
you.
you.
big fan. I'm a big fan of